Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Normandy Warbirds 2025. We're excited to have you all here for today's show. We've got an amazing adventure packed in for you today with a wonderful range of aircraft from past and present. We go all the way back into the beginnings of World War II all the way up to the present. We're excited to do this unique show, what we believe is DCS's very first Warbird dedicated and themed air show. And, as we went on through the production and the talk to the performers for this show, one thing that we realized is that we really had something amazing on our hands here. So we're very excited to show you some of the things that we have today. We've got a lot of amazing performers that are extremely excited about today's show. A lot of things that you've probably never seen before. Many of these things are particularly new to the Normandy Warbirds show. Today we've got the World War II radio fighters. That's what's going to be starting off today's show with a 3-ship, including a P-47 Thunderbolt, an F-4U Corsair, and an FW-190. Very unlikely pairing of aircraft, but trust me, you're going to enjoy that. Then we have the Virtual Commemorative Air Force, which is bringing in 2 aircraft, one of which was particularly important to the actual D-Day invasion over the beaches of Normandy, and we'll tell you about that when we bring that up here pretty soon. Following that, we've got a lot of excitement, something that I was a part of, and a few of our friends, we all flew that together, and are excited to show you the MiG demo, the debut, we hope, of something that maybe will be repeated again. And I think everyone's going to really enjoy that. It's going to bring a lot of speed and a lot of power to the show today. Following that, we're going to have an amazing tribute to World War II bombers, some of which you're seeing in the screens that you're looking at now. And it's a very unique pairing of 4 aircraft across, across both theaters of World War II. And flying those together, it's going to be amazing sights and sounds, and we're very excited about that as well. We've got a solo demonstration from an F4F Wildcat that will basically just bring a little bit of noise and beautiful sounds to today's show. Following that, we have the very much anticipated Virtual Viper demonstration team and heritage flight with a very special tribute for today's show. And last but absolutely not least, one of the most exciting things for us hosts today, we have the Virtual Snowbirds in an amazing commemoration flight. And I don't want to give up too much of that because I don't want to steal their thunder, but that is definitely something to look forward to for today. So stick around, we have a lot in store. We're going to kick things right off with our RADIAL Warbirds. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to describe to you a little bit about what you're about to see. Radial engine fighters were some of the most rugged, powerful, and iconic aircraft of World War II. Radial engines are piston engines which have their cylinders arranged in a circle around the crankshaft, and they are air-cooled, which makes them simpler and lighter, more durable, and easier to maintain, and less vulnerable to combat damage. Fighters which had radial engines mounted on their nose were among some of the most rugged aircraft in the sky, able to take damage and keep flying, and pushing over 2,000 horsepower towards the end of the war. They were favored in naval aviation due to the fact that they didn't need heavy and complex cooling systems that were added dangers during battle. Flying lead for today's formation, the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, nicknamed the Jug, embodies the raw power of American engineering and over 2 tons of fury. It was the heaviest single-engine fighter of World War II. With 18 cylinders weighing 8 tons and generating 2,000 horsepower, the massive R2800 double Wasp radial engine could get the Thunderbolt to speeds over 430 miles per hour. The Thunderbolt was exceptional at climbing to high altitudes and escorting bombers over Normandy, France, and deep into German-occupied territory. Its massive turbocharged engine let the Jug fly over 30,000 feet, and it could outdive anything, making even FW-190s think twice about mixing it up with the Jug. Pilots developed unique tactics that involved energy management and taking advantage of the Jug's power and speed to surprise their enemies or leave them chasing. Armed with 8 50 caliber Browning machine guns, the Jug could unleash a wall of lead that would shred trains, trucks, and tanks during ground attack. Add in rockets and 500-pound bombs, and you've got yourself a flying artillery machine. The F-4U Corsair is one of the most iconic fighter aircraft of World War II, and it had a significant impact on naval aviation. Today, you see it flying on the left wing of the P-47 Thunderbolt. It was designed and built by Vought and introduced in 1942 and used extensively during World War II and the Korean War. The F-4U is easily recognizable by its distinctive bent wing design, which was a feature necessary to give the aircraft enough clearance for its large, powerful engine while still being able to land and take off from aircraft carriers. The Corsair was also powered by a Pratt & Whitney R2800 double Wasp engine, much like the P-47. With its 2,000 horsepower, the Corsair had a top speed of around 446 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest piston engine fighters of its time. The Corsair was initially intended for use in the Pacific Theater and became famous for its role in naval combat. Its speed and firepower made it very effective against Japanese aircraft and ships. It had a kill-to-loss ratio of 11-to-1 during World War II, making it one of the most successful fighters in terms of effectiveness. The Corsair was also heavily armed with 6 50 caliber Browning M2 machine guns and could carry bombs or rockets for ground attack missions. The Corsair had a tough, sturdy construction and was very resistant to battle damage. The third aircraft you see flying today is the Focke-Wulf FW-190, another classic and iconic fighter aircraft from World War II, developed by Nazi Germany. It became one of the most formidable adversaries for Allied pilots during the conflict. The FW-190 first introduced in 1941 by Focke-Wulf, led by chief designer Kurt Tank. It played a pivotal role in the air war over Europe, particularly in Western and European fronts. Powered by the BMW 801 radial engine, which was a very powerful and reliable engine for its time. It gave the FW-190 excellent speed and climb performance. The FW-190 could reach speeds up to 413 miles per hour. It was initially designed as a day fighter but proved to be highly adaptable for various roles. Its design allowed it to serve as a fighter bomber, ground attack aircraft, and night fighter. The FW-190 was heavily armed with two 13mm MG-131 machine guns and four 20mm MG-151 or 20 cannons in its wings. Some variants could carry bombs or rockets for ground attack missions. The FW-190 had a highly effective combat record, with a kill-to-loss ratio of about 2-to-1, or better in some theaters. It was especially effective in countering Allied bombers and fighters. The FW-190 was known for its maneuverability, especially in the high-speed combat. It could outmaneuver many Allied fighters, particularly in the early years of the war. Here, you see our Corsair and our FW-190 have engaged in a dogfight. This simulation is an example of what would have been seen over Western Europe during the middle of the war. Of course, F4U Corsairs were not very common in the Western European theater. However, you get to see the performance of these two iconic aircraft matched up against one another. Now, let's watch as these two unlikely adversaries battle it out. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that intro to today's air show with the Radial Warbirds performance. Three beautiful radial engine fighters just toiling around the sky. It doesn't get any better than that, but it will, because we have a lot more coming for you today. We're going to move right on ahead and celebrate a few very iconic aircraft with the virtual commemorative Air Force, some of which are actually participants, real world participants in the Normandy invasion. So let's get right to it.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a show by the Virtual Commemorative Air Force. Over 80 years ago, on June 6, 1944, the plane before you in real life, that's all brother, led the airborne invasion of Normandy, piloted by Lieutenant Colonel John Donaldson. The plane led over 800 C-47s that dropped over 13,000 paratroopers into the battle that changed the course of mankind. 80 years later, the Commemorative Air Force were able to bring this great plane back into the skies over Normandy for the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of D-Day in 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, to the right, that's all brother, in a flat pass. After serving on D-Day and in Operations Dragoon, Market Garden, Repulse, and Varsity, the airplane returned to the United States and was sold to the civilian market in 1945. During the course of many owners over the next several decades, the historical significance of the airplane was lost, and it was eventually sold to be scrapped. Fortunately, two Air Force Reserve historians discovered that the historic airplane was lying in a boneyard in Wisconsin. The Commemorative Air Force was able to acquire the airplane, and through a large group of donors and volunteers, restore the airplane to flying status. Ladies and gentlemen, to the left, that's all brother. That's All Brother has been restored to its 1944 condition, including its D-Day paint scheme, along with a thorough historic interior restoration. The CAF maintains airplanes to be artifacts of living history, and you can experience the airplane in real life firsthand by touring and even going on a flight. Ladies and gentlemen, get your cameras ready. Behind and to the right, that's All Brother. As part of the Commemorative Air Force's Central Texas Wing, That's All Brother made the epic journey back over the Atlantic in both 2019 and 2024. And it flew with the D-Day Squadron, consisting of 14 C-47s and DC-3s in 2019 and 5 in 2024. The CAF retraced the classic ferry path from the United States to Canada, Greenland, Iceland, Scotland, and England to Duxford on June 6, 2019 and 2024. That's All Brother flew with other C-47s in formation to close out the D-Day commemorations over the U.S. cemetery at Omaha Beach in Normandy. And then they continued to Germany for the 70th and 75th commemoration of the Berlin airlift. Ladies and gentlemen, to the right, that's All Brother with a dirty pass. Ladies and gentlemen, That's All Brother is setting up for one final pass. Get your cameras ready, because it'll be your best time to screenshot. For one final time, That's All Brother. The plane before you, in real life, is known as Fifi. Fifi is one of two B-29s still flying in the real world. Fifi was acquired by the CAF in the early 1970s when a group of CAF members found her at a U.S. Navy proving ground at China Lake, California, where she was being used as a missile target. The airplane was rescued and restored and flew for over 30 years until 2006 when the chief pilot made the decision to ground her, pending a complete power plant refit. What followed was an extensive 4-year restoration that included replacing all 4 engines with a new custom-built hybrid engine. Ladies and gentlemen, to the right, B-29 Fifi. The Boeing B-29 Superfortress is a 4-engine propeller-driven heavy bomber designed by Boeing, which was flown primarily by the United States during World War II and the Korean War. It was one of the largest aircraft operational during World War II, and it featured state-of-the-art technology. It was the single most expensive weapons project undertaken by the United States in World War II, exceeding the cost of the Manhattan Project by $1 and $1.7 billion. Innovations introduced included a pressurized cabin, dual-wheeled tricycle landing gear, a remote computer-controlled fire system that directed 4 machine gun turrets that could be operated by a single gunner and a fire control officer. And it also had a manned tailgun section that was also semi-remote. Ladies and gentlemen, again, to the left, B-29 Fifi. In World War II, B-29s were loaned to the United Kingdom, where the Royal Air Force called them Washingtons, and 2 British B-29s were transferred to Australia and served with the Royal Australian Air Force in the early 1950s. During World War II, several B-29s had to make emergency landings in Soviet Russia, where they were interned despite American requests for the return. Soviet industry reverse-engineered the B-29s and developed the Tupolev Tu-4. The USSR operated Tu-4s until the 1960s, when they were transferred to China and operated by them into the 1980s. Fifi was rescued, restored, and flown nationwide for the public education and enjoyment of over 30 years until 2006, when Fifi underwent a $3 million restoration, which included replacing and modernizing all 4 engines. Fifi returned to the skies in 2010 and has since traveled the country from coast to coast and into Canada, attracting large crowds at air shows, museums, and tour stops as part of the B-29/B-24 Squadron's Air Power History Tour. Ladies and gentlemen, one final time to the right, B-29 Fifi. Ladies and gentlemen, to close off today's performance by the Virtual Commemorative Air Force, we would like to recreate a historic flyover of the C-47s on Normandy. That's All Brother has joined up with 9X. And please join me for a moment of silence as these aircraft pass over. Gentlemen, this concludes the Commemorative Air Force's display. We would like to thank you for taking the time and watching us perform. Enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you for watching.
Well, folks, what'd you think about that? Told you we'd bring the Warbirds today, and we absolutely are, and we are not done at all. We've got the MiG demo coming up next, which is going to bring a lot of energy, a lot of speed, and a lot of power to today's show, and it won't be the last thing. Don't worry. Stay tuned for more. We've got more beautiful World War II aircraft to show off for you today, and then we're going to turn it over to the Virtual Viper demonstration team, the Heritage Flight, and then eventually the Virtual Snowbirds with their amazing tribute. So stick around, and friends don't let friends miss out on the virtual air show. Be sure to tell everyone that we are still live. We have lots in store for you today, a lot of beautiful and a beautiful sounding aircraft to go. So stick with us. We're going to go ahead right now because we hear the MiGs are inbound. Let's go. This is the MiG demo. This is a 3-ship of the Soviet Union's first production swept-wing jet fighter with a pressurized cockpit and ejection seat. Developed by the Soviet Union following World War II and entering service in 1949, the MiG-15 was a potent adversary of Western aircraft. The aircraft you see here are MiG-15 BIS, an upgraded production model with a more powerful engine and hydraulically boosted ailerons. The first combat of the MiG-15 was seen during the Chinese Civil War in 1950. Soviet Union pilots used the MiG-15 BIS to train and support the People's Liberation Army Air Force as they fought off attacks from Taiwan's Nationalist Republic of China Air Force. Soviet pilot Captain Kalinikov scored the MiG-15's first aerial kill as he shot down a Taiwanese P-38 over Shanghai. The Soviets provided a number of communist satellite nations the MiG-15, including North Korea, where it saw extensive use against the United Nations forces in the Korean War. The war began with a predominant number of piston-driven aircraft and early straight-wing jets, flown by experienced pilots who flew during World War II. United Nations forces proclaimed air dominance in the early stages of the war with the P-51 Mustang, F-4U Corsair, Hawker Sea Fury, and B-29 Super Fortress. These highly developed aircraft fought against North Korean People's Air Force propeller-driven aircraft, which were supplied by the Soviet Union, such as IL-10s and Yak-9Ps. The Kremlin agreed to supply China and North Korea with MiG-15s to counter the United Nations air superiority. The Soviets also secretly participated in air battles against UN aircraft, carefully disguising their operations as North Korean or Chinese, and working to avoid flying into areas where their Soviet pilots could be shot down and captured. Soviet squadrons painted their aircraft with a red nose and North Korean markings, much like the ones you see flying in this formation. Many American pilots distinctly recall from their dogfights against MiG-15s tactics that resemble those used by Soviet pilots in World War II. After the war and the fall of the Soviet Union, many Soviet pilots released information detailing the secret involvement of Soviet pilots flying against UN pilots throughout the Korean War. MiG-15s were very effective at intercepting B-29s and operating from high altitudes in large groups. Soviet pilots developed tactics that used high altitude and speed to their advantage. The F-86 Sabre was developed and deployed against the MiG-15 and was comparable in performance, so comparable that the success of either fighter largely came down to the skill and experience of their pilots. The Soviet Union had a hard time developing jet engines that were reliable past a mere few hours. They adopted technology from late German development at the end of World War II. Thanks to the purchase of jet engines from the British, the Soviets copied components to develop what would lead to the development of the Klimov VK-1. The Klimov VK-1 is a centrifugal flow turbojet producing nearly 6,000 pounds of thrust. The MiG-15 can fly at speeds up to 1,076 kilometers per hour, or 581 knots at sea level, and has a combat range of just over 1,000 kilometers, with a higher ceiling than all variants of the F-86 Sabre, and it had much better thrust-to-weight ratio and a better climb rate and turn radius above 33,000 feet. The MiG-15 was slower at low altitude and could be outturned by the F-86 below 33,000 feet. Skilled pilots would force Sabres into fighting in the vertical plane or staying above 33,000 feet if fighting in the horizontal plane. The MiG-15 could also escape by climbing to a higher ceiling, knowing the Sabre could not keep up. Now, our MiG pilots will demonstrate the speed and power of the MiG-15 over the next few minutes. We hope you enjoy this brief display of the capabilities of the MiG-15. Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed the MiG demo team. We brought a lot of speed, a lot of energy, and a lot of power with that act. 3 MiG-15s flying together and then just absolutely tearing the airfield apart one by one for just a few minutes, and demonstrating the early Soviet air power in the jet age. So really something different and something unique for us to show you. We're going to keep things moving along here, and we're going to go right into the World War II bombers as they are already inbound now. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to describe a few of the aircraft that you're about to see here. Welcome to the World War II bomber flight for Normandy Warbirds 2025. Today's bomber flight is led by a consolidated PBY Catalina. On the left wing, a de Havilland Mosquito. On the right wing, a North American B-25 Mitchell. And flying in slot, an Avro Lancaster. consolidated PBY Catalina that's flying in lead of today's formation flight is painted to represent an OA-10A of the 5th Emergence Rescue Squadron, stationed in Halesworth in Suffolk towards the end of World War II. This design was conceived by Consolidated initially as a pure flying boat in 1935, and we use a simple beaching gear to take the aircraft out of the water. From that was developed the patrol bomber version in its more definitive form, which achieved new world distance record in excess of 3,400 miles on its very first flight in May 1936. It was a very innovative design in a number of ways, a very streamlined design, partly due to its extensive fuel tanks in the wings and its wingtip floats, which are retractable. Later came the PBY-5A amphibian model, and that's the one we see here. The keen-eyed amongst you may have noticed some modifications to this specific Catalina, mainly the fuselage blisters and the removal of the front turret. This aircraft is a Canadian-built version of the PBY-5A. It was taken on charge in October of 1943 and initially saw service with 9 Bomber Reconnaissance Squadron in British Columbia, used as a submarine hunting aircraft both day and night. By 1944, the Japanese threat to Canada had receded, so No. 9 Squadron was disbanded and the aircraft was placed into storage until 1948, where it was converted to be a freighter. During this time, it flew worldwide from Atlantic to the Indian Oceans and flew photographic missions in the Arctic regions as well as flood relief missions. It continued in the flood supply and rescue missions until May 1961. The aircraft was sold to the civilian market and operated as a firebomber until the late 1990s, where it was sold to Plain Sailing Air Displays, its current owner. It lost its firefighting colors in 2004 and now flies with the rescue scheme and the name Little Miss Pickup. The blisters differ from an operational Catalina, where these would have been fitted with machine gunners, and they were changed when the aircraft was changing hands in Africa between firefighting companies, and there were discussions to make the aircraft into a tourist safari aircraft, but nothing ever came of it. The Avro Lancaster flying in today's flight is known as FM-213 and is one of the only 2 airworthy examples of the Avro Lancaster in the world. Built by Victory Aircraft in Malton, Ontario, construction number 3414, rolled out in July 1945. It was then transferred directly to Canadian Forces Base Trenton, as it was no longer needed in Europe. It was modified for maritime reconnaissance, but damaged during delivery. After repairs were made in 1953, FM-213 spent the next 10 years as a search and rescue aircraft over the Atlantic Ocean. FM-213 was retired from active service in November 1963 and sold to the Royal Canadian Legion to be a gate guard at Goderich, Ontario. In 1977, FM-213 was donated to the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum, taking flight again in 1988. And has been flying about 50 hours a year ever since. FM-213 was painted as a Royal Canadian Air Force KB-726 with the letters VRA on its sides in commemoration of the aircraft which was involved in action in which Andrew Mynarski won the Victoria Cross in 1944. It is referred to as the Mynarski Memorial Lancaster and frequently tours, air shows, and offers free flights over the Toronto and Hamilton areas. The North American B-25 Mitchell, named after General Billy Mitchell, the outspoken pioneer of U.S. air power, is one of the most legendary medium bombers of the Second World War. The B-25 first flew in 1940 and quickly proved itself in theaters across the globe, from the Pacific Islands and Japan to the skies over Italy and North Africa. Notice its wide wings, twin tails, and broad fuselage. The B-25 could carry a payload of up to 3,000 pounds of bombs, and in later models, the B-25 Mitchells were outfitted with up to 14 50 caliber machine guns and even a 75mm cannon in the nose. The Mitchell was most known and famous for the daring Doolittle raid operation, which required skilled air crews to operate this medium bomber from the platform of an aircraft carrier. With no airfields close enough to Tokyo to launch the bomber safely with a chance of reaching its target, an aircraft carrier was the only suitable option to strike the heart of Imperial Japan. The success of the raid shocked the Axis powers and lifted the morale of the Allies at a critical point in the war. The Mitchell went on to conduct a variety of operations, including bombing runs, anti-submarine patrols, ground attack, and even VIP transport for General Eisenhower during the war. Nicknamed the Wooden Wonder, the de Havilland DH-98 Mosquito was built almost entirely out of plywood. It was a daring design that proved faster than fighters, more agile than bombers, and versatile enough to do it all. The Mosquito performed reconnaissance, night fighting, precision bombing, and more. Notice the unmistakable twin-engine silhouette, sleek and elegant, with a throaty musical growl of two Rolls-Royce Merlin engines. These Merlin engines are shared amongst other great designs such as the Spitfire, later model Mustangs, and the Lancaster, also flying in today's formation. The Mosquito relied on speed and agility to get in and out before the enemy could respond. It's a bomber with the heart of a fighter, and in the hands of a skilled pilot, it can outmaneuver almost anything in the sky. Mosquitoes participated in critical missions such as the attack on the Gestapo headquarters, Pathfinder missions for the RAF, and even tangled with German jets in late World War II. Thousands of aircrew flew these machines into combat over flak-filled skies, jungle runways, and unforgiving oceans with courage, and many never came home. Well, folks, hope you enjoyed more World War II aircraft with our World War II bomber flight. We've got one more for you today, and it's some unfortunate news for everybody. Due to a family emergency, unforeseen circumstance, the Virtual Viper demo team, one of the team members, is unable to be here today for the show. It just came up last minute. So unfortunately, we have to cancel the Virtual Viper demo's performance in today's show. But, however, we have already advanced to Virtual Snowbirds, and they are in the process of starting their aircraft and getting ready for their performance here. So we're going to have the Virtual Snowbirds just a tad bit earlier than we were planning to. We're running a little behind schedule, so it actually kind of moved things forward a little bit. So right now, we're just going to have the Wildcat solo, and then we're going to go straight into the Virtual Snowbirds. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, here we go with the Wildcat solo. And ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed the F4F Wildcat solo. We're going to move things along to the virtual Snowbirds. Again, as we said earlier, the virtual Viper demonstration team had to cancel at the last minute due to an unforeseen family emergency. So they will not be with us today at today's show. However, the virtual Snowbirds have a very exciting treat in store for everyone today. A lot of history and a lot of remembrance in regards to their squadron and its participation in D-Day and in the Normandy raids. While those aircraft get set up and are making their way over to the show site, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to have in the future with Aeroflight Live and some other things going on in the community. As you know, this is the last show for 2025 for Aeroflight Live, and we have more in store for you next year. The team is very excited about the way this show has gone, the preparation and the things that have happened and become a part of this show, and we have ambitions to do something like this in a greater scale in the future. So there's a good chance that Normandy Warbirds will return in 2026. We're hoping that with the return of Normandy Warbirds, we can make the show even bigger and more exciting. Probably have many more acts involved. We're looking to have more European jet teams and formation groups and things like that participate, as we do have the location based in France and overlooking one of the most famous locations in Europe. Then on top of that, we're also planning on having some other shows next year. We're just in discussions about these things for now, but we would like to have the community's input on what shows you would like to see. We are considering possibly bringing back the Saipan Air Show in a greater scale, as that was also a very exciting and very fun location for us to do a show. The layout was really excellent, and we had some really, really good performers for our first show as Aeroflight Live, our debut show earlier this year. And then looking forward into another show that we're beyond excited to hopefully introduce to you guys very soon. We have a throwback show, and I'll tell you a little bit about that show. So the plan is to have a 1990s era air show at Nellis Air Force Base. Now everyone is familiar with the Nevada scenery and the Nellis Air Force Base show layout, and many shows have been done there, but the twist on this one is that everything in the show, including the music and production styles, needs to match something that existed in the 90s, and specifically 1995. That means, unfortunately, we may not have the F-22 Raptor demo in its current form, but we can have something that did exist in 1995, like the Viper West or Viper East demo teams, or A-10 West or A-10 East, or even something overseas or from abroad that existed in its form in 1995. And we would love to see it. We would love to get as many participants as possible involved in that operation to have one of the greatest shows that we can think of in DCS world. We have a lot of very skilled and talented performers, and I think it would be a really exciting time to throw your demo back. If you have one that existed in 1995, you're basically just rolling the clock back and saying, you know, what would this look like in 1995? I'm going to fly that profile on and that set of production and music. So that's what we're looking for. So we plan to introduce more details about that show at some point here in the near future. Be on the lookout for that. Signups will be introduced with that as well, so everyone has plenty of time to get their ideas on the board. And I can tell you it's a full show, so we plan to have several hours worth of participants if we're able to. And you know, jet teams are beyond encouraged to participate in any way. And we look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. You don't have to be an established team already. Let's say, you know, you just want to do you know, a demo that you just saw on YouTube that you really liked, or something that you were fond of because you saw it when you were younger. We'd love to see it, even if it's just a one-off recreation of something special. So look for the announcement for the Airshow 95 or 1995. Now it's 1995, I think is what we're going to call it. And we look forward to having as many of you there as we can get. Virtual Snowbirds are making their way across the channel right now as we speak. They took off from the UK and are bringing their aircraft all the way across the channel for a very, very special display for us today. We're just giving them a little bit of time since things moved forward a little bit. It kind of caught everyone by surprise, just kind of shifting the schedule around. They were slated to fly in basically 7 minutes on the stream, so we're going to try and get as early as possible with their performance here shortly. Also happening today, it's a very big day in the virtual airshow world. We also have the FIDE airshow hosted by the actual Chilean Air Force. And that has been ongoing throughout the week and this weekend with multiple days and a plethora of virtual aerobatic teams and acts. Today is, I believe, day 5 of their event, and it's a loaded show today. It goes all the way through the evening, so once this show concludes, you'll be able to go and watch the FIDE Air Show and keep the virtual air show energy going all day long. We're going to go check in with the virtual Snowbirds to see what their status is, and then we'll be back shortly. I can feel the anticipation increasing with the music that we're playing right now. But ladies and gentlemen, I have good news for you. The virtual Snowbirds are just a few miles away from their starting point, so we're going to go ahead and carry things over to them. And they're going to have an amazing display for you today. It's very special. There's a good surprise in there, so I can't wait to see it. I haven't fully watched it myself, their practice runs or anything, but just after talking to them and knowing what they're doing, you're going to really enjoy this show. And it's also, I would like to say, it's also Aeroflight Live's very first formation jet team performer. So ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the virtual Snowbirds.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you may be viewing from. On behalf of all the members of Virtual 431 Air Demonstration Squadron, welcome to the 2025 Virtual Snowbirds Twilight Performance. Bonjour, bon après-midi et bonsoir, de où que vous soyez dans le monde. Au nom de tous les membres de l'escadron de démonstration aérienne virtuelle 431, nous vous souhaitons la bienvenue à cette présentation crépusculaire des Virtual Snowbirds 2025. The Virtual Snowbirds are composed of 9 show pilots and 3 support pilots who are all flight simulator enthusiasts from across North America. C'est un honneur pour moi de vous présenter aujourd'hui la performance des Virtual Snowbirds en tant que Virtual Snowbird 6. Mon nom est Mike Bourget, indicatif Skidmark de Saint-Sur-Richelieu. Je suis un contrôleur aérien à la retraite et un pilote d'avion de chasse de démonstration sur le L-29 Delphin du bloc soviétique avec les Warbirds ACM. Lorsque je ne vole pas avec l'équipe, vous pouvez me trouver, ma femme et moi, en train de naviguer sur différents océans en voilier. Mais surtout, j'aime passer du temps avec ma femme et nos enfants. Joining me today is safety pilot and streamer Virtual Snowbird. Our streamer is Sergei Fedin, call sign Daisy, from Simferopol, Crimea. Daisy is a student pilot working as a technical dispatcher in a flight school, and in his free time, he enjoys car racing. Virtual Snowbird 10, notre pilote de sécurité, Nicolas Gay, indicatif Starbuck de Québec, Québec. Starbuck a débuté sa carrière dans l'aviation en tant que technicien de maintenance aéronautique. Il est aujourd'hui spécialiste des modifications d'aéronefs et titulaire d'une licence de pilote privé. Last but not least is our standards officer, Virtual Snowbird 12, Adam Stewart, call sign Hemster from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Adam is a former RCAF flight instructor flying the CT-155 Hawk and the CT-156 Harvard II. The Virtual Snowbirds are proudly sponsored by Pit Lane Sim Racing. Pit Lane Sim Racing aims to simplify shopping, support builds in all stages or levels, and offer the most bang for the buck so you can have the best performance possible within a given budget. The Virtual Snowbirds are coming to Aero Gatineau September 12 to 14. Come try your hand at the mighty CF-18 and see if you have the skills required to refuel off the legendary CC-130 Hercules. Step back in time, take controls of the legendary P-51 Mustang and Supermarine Spitfire in this interactive attraction. All of this is made possible by partnerships with Eagle Dynamics, AMD, Canada Computers, Pit Lane Sim Racing, Alpha United, Capital Asset and Management Group. The Virtual Snowbirds fly the DCS CT-114 Tudor, developed by Grinelli Designs with artwork from FJM Aero, featuring a custom flight and systems model built with over 20,000 lines of codes. Our Tudor module features accurate engine, hydraulic, and electrical systems, all validated by real Tudor pilots. Originally introduced in the 1960s, the CT-114 Tudor served as the RCAF's primary jet trainer until 2000. Powered by a single J85 engine producing 2,700 pounds of thrust, the straight-wing Tudor reaches over 400 knots while delivering sports car-like handling. Thanks to dedicated maintenance it receives, it remains the perfect platform for the Snowbirds' aerial demonstrations. Honored to perform our 2025 Twilight demonstration for you. In keeping with the theme of this year's air show, you will notice a few special modifications to both our performance and our aircraft. On June 6, 1944, 21 Halifax Mark III bombers from 431 Squadron of the Royal Canadian Air Force's No. 6 Bomber Group departed Croft, England as part of Operation Overlord. The squad's mission, bombing enemy positions in Condy-sur-Noireau, a target in the Normandy region of France behind the D-Day landing beaches. Today, our Tudors proudly display D-Day invasion strikes, honoring all those who fought for freedom against the threat of fascism. This evening's performance also features an RCAF heritage flight with a Supermarine Spitfire Mark 9. Today's Spitfire is a virtual replica of the Roslyn Spitfire owned by Aerotech, which pays tribute to 442 Squadron pilot Arnold Roslin, who flew with the Snakes before paying the ultimate sacrifice over Normandy on the 13th of July, 1944. Aujourd'hui, les Snowbirds virtuels ont l'honneur de vous présenter leur démonstration au crépuscule 2025. Conformément au thème du spectacle aérien de cette année, vous remarquerez quelques modifications spéciales apportées à notre spectacle et à nos avions. Le 6 juin 1944, 21 avions bombardiers Halifax Mark III de l'escadron 431 du 6e groupe de bombardement de l'aviation royale canadienne ont décollé de Croft en Angleterre, dans le cadre de l'Operation Overlord. La mission de l'escadron consistait à bombarder les positions ennemies à Condé-sur-Noireau, une cible en Normandie derrière les plages du débarquement. Aujourd'hui, nos tuteurs abordent fièrement les galons du débarquement du jour J en hommage à tous ceux qui ont combattu pour la liberté contre la menace fasciste. Le spectacle de ce soir comprend également une escadrille du patrimoine de l'Arc à bord d'un Supermarine Spitfire Mark 9. Le Spitfire d'aujourd'hui est un réplique virtuel du Roseland Spitfire appartenant à Aerotech, qui rend hommage au pilote du 442 escadron Arnold Roseland qui a volé avec les Snakes avant de payer le sacrifice ultime au-dessus de la Normandie le 13 juillet 1944. And now, approaching from the right, get your print screens ready for your 2025 Virtual Snowbirds and the Virtual Roslyn Spitfire. right, as promised, and now approaching from the right, get your print screens ready for your 2025 virtual Snowbirds and the virtual Roslyn Spitfire. As the team is repositioning for a beautiful bottom side silhouette pass, watch the formation pass center stage and listen for Snowbird 1's lead, calling for the Spitfire to drop.
Tightening. Victory 1 drop, tightening.
Victory 1 off.
Tightening, big diamond, go.
Today's Spitfire pilot is Ian Bruce of Aubrey, Texas. As the Snowbirds prepare for today's demonstration, the Roslyn Spitfire is returning for a short performance. Okay, Normandy, it's showtime. Look behind center stage for the 8 twinkling lights of the Card 9 formation and listen live into the cockpit of Virtual Snowbird 1 as the boss calls for the team's check-in.
Running in for the Twilight Show. Virtual Snowbirds, check in.
Number 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8.
9, 1. Let's have a great show. Smoke now.
Vos Virtual Snowbirds 2025, your 2025 Virtual Snowbirds. Smooth and accurate flying is essential for our two inner pilots. Flying in the inner right wing position is Virtual Snowbird 2, Tom Milich, call sign Racer from Detroit, Michigan. Racer has previously flown as an inner, an outer, a stem cat, and also as flight lead. In his free time, Tom enjoys an amateur radio and flying his RC aircraft. Anchored on the inner left wing position is Virtual Snowbird 3, Hassan Sajjad, call sign Packets from Toronto, Ontario. Packets is a flight instructor in Toronto with over 1,300 hours of flight experience. In his free time, he likes to play guitar. Returning from the left, the inverted wedge formation with a looping change to Big Diamond. Signature Snowbirds, sharp, strong, steady.
Power back, Big Diamond, go.
Against the grain should be a way of life. What's worth the prize is always worth the fight. Every second counts, 'cause there's no second try. So live like you've never lived it twice. Don't take the free ride.
La colonne vertébrale de notre formation se compose de deux pilotes de ligne arrière mieux connus sous les noms de STEMCAT. The first line astern pilot is Virtual Snowbird 4, Matthew Hines, call sign Stumpy. From Carleton Place, Ontario, Stumpy works as a painting contractor and was a Canadian Forces officer for 20 years within the cadet program as a cadet instructor. Stumpy enjoys spending much of his time with his wife, playing computer games, streaming on Twitch, and outdoor activities. Regardez sur votre doigt alors que l'équipe se prépare pour la combinaison d'un bouc et d'un tonneau avec le formation du grand losange emblématique des Snowbirds, tranchante, solide et stable. Our second line of stern pilot is Virtual Snowbird 5, Michael Bennett, call sign Beanie from Oshawa, Ontario. Beanie is a 39-year veteran of the Canadian Forces, currently serving at 8 Wing Trenton. Beanie is a naval weapons officer by trade and a former RCAF pilot. Beanie brings over 1,500 hours of military and civilian flying experience to the team.
Time stood still, just like a photograph. You made me feel like this will last forever. Looking in your eyes, I see my whole life.
The team is now returning from the left. We will go into Speedbird formation, named for the white bird painted on the bottom of our jets. As the team exits right, watch for the boss to pull them into a loop, and listen in as he calls for the change from one symbol of speed to another, transforming into the mighty Vulcan formation. Voilà aux extrémités de notre formation et s'assure la stabilité et l'allégeance de celle-ci. Notre pilote extérieur, flying on the outer left wing position, is Virtual Snowbird 7, Chris Karstens, call sign Hotshot, from West Palm Beach, Florida. Chris is a programmer by trade. He's a licensed pilot with over 200 hours flying between powered and non-powered aircraft. Hotshot previously flew Snowbirds 4 in the 2024 season and serves as the show team training pilot. Get ready as the Virtual Snowbirds perform the iconic Maple Split. Watch closely as they draw the shape of the maple leaf in a tribute to Canada, painted across the sky. Today's Maple Split is dedicated to all the staff here at Aeroflight Live for their continued dedication to the virtual airshow community.
They wear the red and white. Watch for those 9 twinkling lights. Big diamond go. I hope you enjoy the show. Yeah, that's how the snowbirds roll. They're coming to a town near you. Represent the great white north, skills, family, and the truth. They're flying through the clear blue sky. Their white smoke trails behind, rolling to that sunshine. Split now when you hear the word.
Easing up.
They're coming to
Snowbirds. Split now.
represent the great white north. Skills, family, and the truth. They're flying
The role of the solos is both physically and mentally demanding. It involves split-second decision-making. Notre lead solo est le Virtual Snowbird 9, Samuel de Beaumont, call sign Gucci, de Québec, Québec. Gucci, dont l'entreprise est l'un des parrainiers de notre équipe, est un gestionnaire de fonds spéculatifs et pendant son temps libre, il aime jouer au golf, créer de la musique, partir à l'aventure avec sa femme. Flying the opposite solo is Virtual Snowbird 8, Rick Stewart, call sign Pickles, from Sault Ste. Marie, Canada. Pickles joined the team in 2023, brings almost 20 years of pilot training experience in both the military and civilian applications, with more than 4,000 hours of flight time. He enjoys playing all the sports and keeping active outdoors as well as experimenting with virtual reality flight training. Notre équipe ne sera pas complète, ne sera pas possible sans le soutien au quotidien de la famille et des amis de chacun des membres de Virtual Snowbirds. The Virtual Snowbirds team would not be complete and the show would not be possible without the daily support of the family and friends of the Snowbird members. Virtual Snowbirds would like to particularly acknowledge the support and assistance of Amanda, Emma, Ben, Pat, Natasha, Margaret, Joanne, Ella and Evan, Karina, Melinda, Olivier, and Gabrielle. In October 1944, 431 Squadron was re-equipped with Canadian-built Lancaster Mark 10 bombers. Look to your left as the team is returning in Lancaster formation for the Lancaster topside pass. Get those print screens ready for your 2025 Virtual Snowbirds. Topside pass Lancaster. Diriger une équipe de voltigeurs aériennes de 8 avions exige de la finesse et une connaissance situationnelle supérieure. Virtual Snowbird 1, the boss, is Matthew Weber, call sign Crank, from Truro, Nova Scotia. Crank is a former Virtual CF-18 demo pilot and was Virtual Snowbird 6 in 2011. Rejoined the team in 2017 as the boss. Crank is a precision approach radar controller, currently posted to 15-wing Moose Jaw. Derrière vous, alors que l'équipe revient pour un passage au-dessus de vos têtes dans la formation de la Bernage du Canada, suivi d'une transition à la formation de Grand Lusange pendant la boucle. Look behind you as the team returns for a pass overhead in the Canada Goose formation, followed by a transition to Big Diamond during the loop. Inukshuk bottom side pass, 2025 Snowbirds. In 1940, the Royal Canadian Air Force played an important role in the Battle of Britain, supporting the Royal Air Force. During this critical campaign, Canadian pilots quickly volunteered to serve overseas. Many flew within the Royal Air Force's No. 1 Squadron, which later became 401 Ram Squadron. Though many Canadians continued to serve with other RAF squadrons, 401 Squadron was the sole national RCAF unit in the battle. The squadron claimed 30 enemy aircraft destroyed, 8 probably destroyed, and 35 damaged within 53 days, flying 1,694 sorties. Today, 401 Squadron is on hiatus as they await delivery of the CF-35, fifth generation fighter, later this decade. Watch now as we recreate the iconic contrails of the Battle of Britain in a tribute to those brave men and women. Regardez maintenant comment nous recréons les traînées de condensation emblématiques de la bataille d'Angleterre en hommage à ces hommes et femmes courageux. 431 Squadron was formed at Burn, Yorkshire, England on the 11th of November 1942. During World War II, the squadron would fly Wellington, Halifax, and then Canadian-built Lancaster bombers on tactical bombing operations throughout Europe. After hostilities in Europe ended, 431 Squadron was selected as part of the Tiger Force for duty in the Pacific Theater and returned to Canada for reorganization and training. The sudden end of the war in the Far East resulted in the squadron being disbanded at Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, September 5th, 1945. The unit was reactivated as a 431 fighter squadron on the 18th of January, 1958, with 5 CL-13 Sabres. They flew 10 air shows across Canada as the nation's first Sabre team. After disbanding again on October 1st, 1958, 431 Squadron was reformed as 431 Air Demonstration Squadron on August 9th, 1977. In total, during World War II, 431 Squadron flew 2,584 sorties, accumulating in 14,621 operational flying hours, dropping 14,004 tons of bombs, scoring 6 confirmed aerial victories, 1 probably destroyed, and 4 damaged. 313 souls paid the ultimate sacrifice with 431 Squadron as well. 54 people were missing, 14 non-operational personnel lost. 10 members of 431 Squadron, flying as the Snowbirds, have also paid the ultimate cost. .431 Squadron battle honors include service over the English Channel, North Sea, Fortress Europe, France and Germany, including operations at the Biscay ports, the Ruhr, Berlin and German ports, and flew over Normandy in 1944 during Operation Overlord. Look ahead and search for the 8 twinkling lights as the team prepares to fly overhead and perform the missing man formation. We remember the fallen, gone, but
Rolling
never
over for
forgotten. Today's missing man is dedicated to all those who paid the ultimate sacrifice serving with 431 Squadron,
Line
including
breaststroke.
the 10 members of the modern 431 Squadron, Canada's Snowbirds.
Running for the missing man, 5 smoke now. 5 break now. Big diamond.
While the virtual Snowbirds rejoin and depart back to RAF
Right, right.
Ford,
11
I would
will be
like,
inbound.
on behalf of the virtual Snowbirds team, to thank everyone for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed performing this demonstration for you. To learn more about our team and the world of formation flying, visit us at www.virtualsnowbirds.ca. And until next time, keep looking up, keep your dreams in formation. Alors que la formation des Virtual Snowbirds se prépare à retourner à la base aérienne de Ford, j'aimerais au nom de l'équipe des Virtual Snowbirds remercier tout le monde d'avoir été avec nous aujourd'hui. Nous espérons que vous avez apprécié le spectacle autant que nous avons pris plaisir à le réaliser pour vous. Au revoir. Plus sur notre équipe et sur l'univers de vol en formation, rendez-vous sur www.virtualsnowbirds.ca. D'ici là, gardez les yeux vers le ciel et vos rêves en formation. Good night from the Virtual Snowbirds.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed that absolutely incredible, awe-inspiring performance from the Virtual Snowbirds. Folks, give it up for the Virtual Snowbirds. Absolutely amazing performance. Honestly, kind of got me a little choked up at the end there. A lot of preparation and a lot of effort has gone into their tribute to the real squadron and the real members that have been a part of their lineage for so long and so far back. And it was a no-brainer to include them in today's show, as they have true connections to this location and the stories and the history of what we've done here at Normandy Warbirds. I'd like to point out that there's a lot that can be learned. Of course, the virtual airshow gremlin never ceases to exist. It's always going to get somebody somewhere in the show. Unfortunately, it struck us today, and it got the Virtual Snowbirds. But you know what? I will say, and for all those that are watching, that are a part of other virtual teams, I will say they must be credit. Credit is due for their preparation and their expectation of the possibility of issues and things going wrong. And I think they handled it absolutely the most professionally it could have been done. You can't help but have technical issues sometimes, but to have a way to handle that situation and to recover from it and just get back up in the air and get back to what you do is absolutely critical. And I hope people have, maybe gained a perspective and some ideas from the way that was handled. I think they did an amazing job. I give all credit to the Virtual Snowbirds on that end. And their performance was nothing short of excellent today. We even got a Spitfire solo, and it was just absolutely beautiful. The timing, the lighting. I don't know if everyone noticed, but throughout today's show, we did perform a dynamic weather setup. So the beginning of the show was earlier in the day, and we gradually moved later into the evening, real time, over the few hours. So we thank everybody for being here. Thank you for joining us today. We could not do this without you guys, without the community and your support. And we appreciate every single one of you that has been able to join us today and watch our stream and our show. And honestly, from the bottom of my heart, it's been an amazing year hosting and running Aeroflight Live. My team is more than thankful for the support that we've had and the performers that we've worked with so far this year. 3 air shows in the books and more to come. Again, stay tuned for more announcements for our future events. Nellis 1995, possibly another Normandy Warbirds show next year, possibly Saipan, maybe something else. We'll see what happens. We'll see what's in the cards. But I must say that this show has been definitely one of the most special virtual shows that I've ever been a part of and ever had the pleasure of conducting. So this is definitely something I want to do again, I think. And yeah, this has been amazing. So truly, thank you everyone for being here. Thanks for your time. We ended the show just about on time as far as we were planning to. So well done to everyone.